Welcome to episode 98 of our Sperduti Fitness podcast, where we take a deep dive into topics that matter in the health and fitness field. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm here with my co-host, Beth. Now, did you know that childhood obesity rates have reached an alarming levels worldwide? As of 2023, approximately 38 million children under the age of 5 were overweight or obese globally. In many developed countries, including the United States, the prevalence of childhood obesity has more than tripled since the 1980s.
But it's not just about the numbers. Childhood obesity isn't just a matter of carrying extra weight. It's a complex issue with far-reaching consequences. Alongside physical health implications such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease risk, there are significant mental health impacts as well, including low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. So tonight, we are sitting down with our favorite super friend, Rachel Simson, our registered dietitian, to talk more about childhood obesity.
Rachel,
Hi, guys.
thanks for joining us again. We love having you on.
I love being here.
And I guess the first question we had, seeing that this childhood obesity has tripled since the 1980s, in your opinion, what are the primary causes of childhood obesity from a nutritional perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, those numbers are crazy. And it's scary because they just keep increasing. So, from a basic level, we're taking in too many calories than we're expending. I mean, that's from a basic level. That's for, children and adults. On a more complex, because we know there are many, things involved in obesity. We do have some social issues. We have environmental issues, genetics. We have lifestyle factors. So, when we're looking at environmental factors, and we can dive deeper into this in more in depth, but like things like school, like childcare, family, what's going on at home, family lifestyle, social, maybe access to healthy foods, food deserts, your cultural preferences and lifestyles. When we look at genetics, there is some genetic component to obesity. It does, which, we can dive deeper into that later, but it's a touchy subject with genetics, because it's like, how much has our genetics really changed in 30 years that made our obesity triple? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't change that fast. So there are many other factors involved. But like I said, from a basic level, same for adults, calories in, calories out. We are taking in too many calories and we are not expending them. Our activity level has decreased drastically over those last 30 years.
So, Rachel, how significant of a role does the diet play in the development of childhood obesity compared to these other factors?
It's pretty big. I mean, I don't have an actual percentage wise, but really, if we're thinking about it, I mean, it's a huge aspect in even like adult obesity. I mean, we're looking at, like I said, excess calories really do lead to obesity. So I would say, really nutrition and physical inactivity are probably the top two components that lead to obesity.
Rachel, for those that don't know, can you explain what a food desert is?
Yeah, so it's really kind of like lack of access to healthy foods in certain areas. So it might be, a poverty area that only has one grocery store, and getting to that grocery store, they may not even have cars to get there. They may have to take the bus there. It may be the only grocery store for blocks and blocks of houses, things like that. So it's really just kind of lack of access to certain healthy foods and foods in general, really.
And what are some common dietary patterns or behaviors that contribute to childhood obesity?
So obviously decrease in, well, I should say not decrease, but let's say, trying to figure out the word I'm looking for. not eating enough fruits and vegetables, obviously. Okay. Obviously eating too many processed and ultra processed foods. Okay. Foods that really don't have too much nutritional value, that are higher in fat, higher in sugar, things like that. I would definitely say caloric fluids are a huge part of this for childhood obesity. So caloric fluids, meaning like juices, pops. I'm going to put milks in there too, because, yes, milk is great and it's healthy, but again, it's portion size. So it's the portion size of these things that we are eating and drinking also that contribute to this obesity. So those are really the things that we're kind of looking at is, these unhealthy foods that we're eating in large amounts. Okay. And the foods that we should be eating, we're not eating. And this is really, I think, coming from a lot of, modeling from our parents. Years ago, how many people used to sit down to dinner as a family? A lot of people did. Do you guys sit down as a family together most nights of the week? Right. A lot of people don't, because, and granted, there is a lot of stuff going on. I feel like our lives are much busier nowadays, but society makes it that way. So I'm not just blaming us as parents. I'm also blaming society that we have this pressure on us to go, 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 and not stop and say, we need to make a healthy meal that has, a protein, a carb, and a vegetable. And that's really what I do try to promote when I am actually meeting with clients. I'm like, look at your plate. Like, do you have a protein? Do you have a starch? And do you have a vegetable? And that's how I want your kids to also eat. So that modeling behavior is just not there anymore, because we are just like, we don't have time to make meals because I have my kid in 5 different sports because they have to be the best in all these sports. And then I have to, do my own thing, which that's fine. Yes, we need our own time, but then there's no time to actually sit down and have a healthy meal. In addition to that, we have this lack of inactivity due to increased screen time, whether that be from TV or, scrolling on our phones. And we're just not doing as much as we used to. Historically, kids were outside until, 8, 9 o'clock, come in, go to bed. Nowadays, after dinner, they're going to sit on the couch. And what are they doing? They're watching TV or scrolling on their phones. And what are they doing typically when they're doing those type of activities? They're snacking. And we know they're not snacking on, carrot sticks. Okay. So that's really kind of what's contributing to a lot of this is just excess food, obviously portion distortion. A lot of the same factors that contribute to adult obesity is contributing to childhood obesity. And it's a lot of the role modeling that's coming from our parents. And people are, our support group. We are just eating what they're eating, and there's just no stopping, and we're doing what they're doing. So yeah, it's a struggle. I think it's a struggle for a lot of people, because I don't think, and this is a huge thing that we'll talk about, but education, I don't think the education is there for a lot of people.
And that's parents and children.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I years ago, and I don't know if they still do it, when I was going through college, I graduated from Duville College with master's in dietetics. And when I was going through my clinical rotations, I actually shadowed a dietitian who worked with Buffalo Public Schools. And she was like the only dietitian for all of the public schools. And she would get notified when there would be like a child that went down to the nurse and they were overweight or obese. So she would get notified, and she would have to meet with this student. Now, these students some of them were like 5, 6 years old. So are they really caring when they sit down with a dietitian? If they continued to gain weight, they would then have to meet with the parents and the student together for like a little mini nutrition session. And it wasn't like the amount of education that's needed is longer than like a 15-minute session. Like, we know that. Okay. But at least it was something. Okay. But a lot of times these parents wouldn't show up. So then it would be, okay, I saw Bobby at the age of 5 and he was pre-diabetic because of his weight. And now he's 12 and he has full-blown diabetes. So I don't know if they still do that. But at least it was an attempt. And who knows how many other kids actually had results with that. I don't know. But it's just, you need the parents involved, because you're not going to educate a 5-year-old on nutrition, because they're not buying the food. They're not cooking the meals.
Right.
You know, like I said, the environmental aspect of kids going to school is also a huge part of it, because, you know, years ago, a lot of, you know, over the past 30 years, a lot of moms have been getting into the workforce, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But then what's happening is kids then have to have different caretakers, like daycare, school. So they're not getting fed the food that we used to eat, because it's really the convenient food in schools. Yes, there are some regulations, but are they the best? No. But then you even can't control what else they are eating or getting from friends or vending machines or things like that. So that is also a huge issue, is that environmental factor.
So, Rachel, would you say that food marketing has targeted children to influence our dietary choices and potentially add to that obesity rate?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the marketing for really anything nowadays is huge. I mean, you open your phone, you open your computer, you're seeing ads for everything, whether it be food or the way people look. You know, and I think the last time we had a podcast, we were talking about how I was at like Old Navy, and I'm like, why are there chips and pop and candy bars in my line at Old Navy? Like, so because there's such easy access to these snack foods and these unhealthy foods, because you're never going to see like a banana at, you know, Old Navy in the line, but we make it so it's almost like these foods are normal to eat. Like, we should be eating them. You know what I mean? So it's just like, all right, well, I'm not really hungry, but it's there. And that's the same thing a lot of people do at home. It's like that mindless eating because you see it. Yeah, marketing is huge, even if it were to be like with celebrities. Like years ago, we had the Got Milk, and all the celebrities were drinking milk, and everyone was, you know, I don't know why that stopped, but, you know, all of a sudden
Let's
everyone
not talk about what the celebrities are having now.
well,
Yeah,
right,
well,
right,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Now they have other
And so,
things.
yeah, now we got some
Not gonna
injections.
talk
Yeah.
about that today.
Which actually I do want to get into, but we'll talk about that later. But so I mean, it's just, they see things and they think that's normal. Or they see portion sizes also. You know, eating out, you're gonna see the portion sizes in most restaurants have increased, and that's a marketing, because we want, you know, hey, if you for one extra dollar, you could supersize this meal. Like, what's a dollar then? Let's do it. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
all marketing. You know, I have a client that, and I'm just gonna, I'm obviously not gonna name him, but he, like, if there's coupons for food, he feels the need to use those coupons.
Right.
So like, that's another marketing scam, is saying like, okay, here's a discounted food. I feel like I need to use a coupon. And it's a lot even for clothes shopping and things like that, not even just for food. But then that's obviously like, there's a marketing tactic right there to get people to buy your food.
Especially with little
And
kids watching cartoons and TV
yeah,
and YouTube. I mean, that's all marketed directly to
yeah,
kids.
throw a Paw Patrol sticker on something and they're going to want it, even if they
Yeah.
never wanted it before. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hmm. Yep.
And then, you know, speaking of like childhood obesity, what do you see as far as foods and beverages that seem to be the most problematic when associated with childhood obesity in children?
So for foods and beverages, so
Mhm.
beverages, obviously, like I said, I think are huge. I think pop is a big one. I think those like sweetened, like Gatorades and Powerades and things like that. Don't get me wrong. I think they are a great tool for like athletes that need them to use them, but to drink every day, they are not needed by kids. Okay. Juices, you know, there is, yes, 100% juice could be a fruit portion, but we're talking about like 4 ounces of juice, not a 12-ounce glass. Or, you know, we see kids that are walking around with, you know, sippy cups filled with juice all day long, you know, and then parents are wondering, why isn't my kid eating? Because they're drinking juice all day or pop all day. You know what I mean? So So I think caloric beverages, like I said, are the big part. And then obviously like ultra processed food, is big because they taste good. I mean, we make foods like that to taste good. Donuts, pizzas, cakes, cookies. And I'm not saying we can't have these things, but we need to make them part of a healthy diet, not our diet.
There's one thing that I've always said to my clients, especially that have children, when I ask them to take that little deep dive into their own grocery list. And if I ask them, if you have something on your grocery list that is a low nutrient dense food and it's consistently on your shopping list, that's not a once in a while food. That's an everyday food. So it's really important for parents to be aware that what they're buying because of their habit is playing into what they're consuming on a daily basis. And I think they forget about that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, if you're the parent and you're not eating any fruits and vegetables, or at least even offering any fruits and vegetables, then they're not going to eat them. I think that's a huge thing and I think also like a lot of parents don't know how to cook them. Again, I think that's from an educational standpoint. We don't get, how many nutrition classes do you get in school? When I was going through school and I graduated high school in, 2002, there was like a home ec class in there, but I don't think they do that anymore. And so like, if you're not learning, you know what I mean? But like, those are classes that we need, not like, I won't even name any classes because I don't.
I will.
She just self-edited there. Rachel. She's like, I'm not even.
I will. No. So Rachel, I have kids that are in that high school level where they are taking those home ec classes, where they have the, they're making the recipes. They are making the old school recipes. They are definitely making really high calorically dense recipes, because my kids will bring the recipes home or, tell me about what they made. And I'm like, holy cow, I can swap this whole recipe out and make it so much better for us at home. And my kids love to be able to know how to make both versions of it. But it's also that same thing. I think in those home ec classes, it's their habits from what they've been taught themselves. Those are the recipes that they love and they're familiar with, and those are the ones that they keep teaching.
Yeah, I also think with those types of classes, I think I just think the school system in general, when it comes to nutritional education, is like 10 years behind what we actually should be doing anyway. Like, if you don't teach kids about nutrition, even if you don't teach kids about nutrition, take the parents out of it, they're not going to be able to teach their kids. So you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And not incorporating those types of classes, to me, are just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the general, like, what's a carb, what's a protein, what's a fat, like, here's simple macronutrients. We'll talk about micronutrients, the importance of them, possibly and I don't want to say put fear in these kids, but that's another issue, is that a lot of times, as a kid, you're not worrying about diabetes at the age of 30, 40. Okay. Because you're just living in that younger years. Whereas as we get older, we start to worry a little more about our health. You know what I mean? But you're not worried about that when you're a kid. But some of these things, you may not be able to reverse, or it may take a lot to reverse it. And the fact that we had to change the name of adult onset diabetes to just type 2 diabetes because so many kids were getting diabetes is crazy to me. We have type 1, which you need that outside form of insulin. Okay. And that can typically happens at a younger age. And it used to be, it used to be called juvenile diabetes. Now it's called type 1. And then we have type 2, but used to be adult onset, because people wouldn't get it until they were older, when their pancreas started to not secrete as much insulin as it should. As you age, typically people gain a little more weight, which then that kind of caused it. Where now we're seeing kids with type 2 diabetes, which is just crazy to me. We're seeing them with, cardiac issues, blood pressure issues, breathing issues. And it's like these issues that they're having, typically we weren't seeing till people were in adult age. So it's crazy. But again, kids aren't thinking of that. So, and then they're going on a medication for that. And then the medications could also interfere with weight. We have some medications that can interfere with that. So then are we causing more issues with trying to lose weight because we're on a medication because of the weight issue? It's like this downward spiral. And no one knows where to start. And I feel like sometimes it's a touchy subject with a lot of people because, especially kids, is because we don't want to offend anyone. And when we go to the doctor and tell a kid or tell a parent that your kid is obese, they don't want to hear that because they don't want to hear that their kid is obese. But I think we need to start talking about it. Like, why aren't we talking about it more? It's such a taboo topic, but we need to talk about it more and bring more awareness to it and say, hey, your kid is approaching a dangerous weight. Like, I know you don't want to hear that, but we joke about like, oh, your kid's chubby or whatever. No, your kid is obese. And again, I think those words, there's a lot of people that don't like to hear obese. And they don't like, sometimes they're not even weighing people at doctors' offices. And in my opinion, that's dangerous. Okay. Yes, the BMI is not, it's a tool. It's not the best tool, but it's a tool. And should there be other things we're looking at? Yes. Maybe waist circumference, blood lipid panel, other, blood markers, maybe do a food recall or a lifestyle recall of like how much you are working out, what you are eating, things like that. And just get an idea. But, I think we need to start talking to parents about their kids that are approaching dangerous weight.
Well, like you said, too, I think it comes down to parent modeling and lack of education.
Yeah.
I mean, lack of nutrition education. I don't think parents know.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's people don't well, again, social media, they're like, don't eat that apple because there's too much sugar in it.
Yeah.
So like my kid can't have an apple because it has too much sugar. Like, again, we're like this social media aspect for kids and adults. It's a dangerous thing out there right now. And I say it all the time. I'm like, I know both our businesses run off social media, but I would be totally fine with it to go away because it is really starting to get dangerous out there. I did a post the other day and I was like, what's the worst nutrition advice you ever got? And I don't know if you guys saw that post, but I was like, these comments are crazy. I mean, take a look at some of the comments. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, who said that to you? I should have put on there who said it to you. And but
That's
it's
the
just
person who
like
gave you the bad advice.
That sounds like that sounds like a podcast all in itself. That would be awesome.
We should do a podcast on every comment that was said
that would be
there.
that would be great. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Seriously though, because some of the stuff like we hear and like especially the fruit stuff. I'm like, when's the last time somebody went to the doctors and they're like, Bob, your obesity, you really got to stop apples.
I know,
Right.
Like
apples are putting you over.
I know, I like Bob, like really, it's the cantaloupe is getting you, buddy. You gotta stop that. But you're right though, because social media, when you put it together, it's like lipstick on a pig. It's horrible advice, but it looks great the way they presented it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, well, this must be good. They have a nice Zoom background, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
they must know what they're talking about. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you're right though. It just there's so much bad information and such a lack of basic education. It's really wild.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talked about socioeconomic factors such as access to healthy food options, the prevalence of childhood obesity, can you talk a little bit about that? I know we talked about food deserts a little bit, but can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a cost issue too. And I think people use that excuse a little too much when they're like eating healthy costs too much. I think when people do also have, say like government funding, money to purchase food, again, I think there's that education level because they have that they can, there's carts that are filled with, juice boxes and pop and meats and things like that, but no fruits and vegetables. And I think that comes from an education level of, yes, you are getting some money from the government to purchase food, but they don't know what to buy. Okay. WIC is a great program, in my opinion, where they they give you the staples. It's you're going to get just the staples, which is going to be, the bread, the peanut butter, the rice, the milk. Those are still healthy options. Okay. I know actually, a lot of dietitians start off at WIC when I never worked for WIC, but I did do a rotation there, and they actually do hand out some farmers market coupons to the local farmers market that are actually within their access, and a lot of times they're never used. And so again, I think it's a huge educational piece. So you have the access to a grocery store. So maybe it's limited that they can only get to a grocery store once a month. Okay. So maybe it's education on fruits and vegetables that last a little longer. You know what I mean? Because it could be, hey, I can't buy that because it's going to go bad. Or maybe it's education on frozen vegetables are okay and they could be affordable. Again, I think there's that educational piece of, you have people saying frozen vegetables aren't as healthy, so I'm not going to buy them. Or I can't afford organic, so I'm not going to buy conventional. And that's a huge issue too, is why I always say, especially with grocery prices now, is there's no need for organic. Okay. Buy conventional. It's totally fine. The nutritional value is still fine. Just wash them. Wash all your fruits and vegetables. And so there's that aspect. And then, like I said, the food desert. And then there are, some cultural issues there too. Some cultures, portion sizes are larger. Some cultures, there's different eating patterns. There's different, you know what I mean? So all of that, falls into that social aspect of it. From an environmental standpoint, it might even be that they don't have access to getting outside because they live in a dangerous area, which people don't think about. It's maybe, hey, my kids can't play outside because I live in an area that they shouldn't be outside after dark, or things like that. So there's less physical activity, or they don't have access to gyms or access to sports for their kids. That's an environmental aspect of childhood obesity. So, that's something to think about. I know, like, a lot of school programs now do have some meal programs for kids. So if kids are in schools and, they can get a breakfast or a lunch or one or the other, depending on some incomes and houses. So that is nice. And, there are rules in schools with, and I don't know the exact rules, but rules with like what they have to have, like a dairy product, a carb, a protein, a fruit, a vegetable, at the certain meals. So they do have to at least supply that. Now, is it the healthiest? Maybe not, but it's an option for them. Do you know what I mean? Usually either it could be free or at a discounted price. So sometimes if there is that social, income part to the family, that might be an option for some families.
Another topic that you touched on right there was a little bit more, and I'm hoping that you can go into this a little bit deeper, is that relationship between childhood obesity, the sedentary behaviors, such as, the additional screen time and their lack of physical activity levels, especially when we think about our kids are in school all day and they're expected to sit for most of the day. They do get a small gym time, maybe every other day. And then they come home and then they still have more homework to complete. So maybe you can even explain what sedentary behaviors are to the viewers.
Yeah. So sedentary behaviors is when we sit a lot. We just, like sitting at school. Let me back up to, first off, do you remember like your parents saying, like, I walked to school uphill both ways, and like in the snow, and like I had, plastic bags over my feet. So, but anyway, but kids used to walk to school. I mean, it is a real thing. And now these buses are picking kids up right in front of their house. They don't even walk to the corner anymore. Like, I get there's that like safety aspect of it too, but also let the kids walk. Like, okay, so first off, we're starting off by just walking out of our house. That's it. Then we're going to sit in class for 6 hours. And then, like you said, you might get gym. Okay. But again, a lot of people get out of gym because of excuses, or they don't want to do it. And in my opinion, I think there needs to be gym every single day. Again, this is just my opinion. Outside play as much as they can, or even inside, whatever it is, or maybe some sort of like, some sort of walking or getting up and moving in every class to some extent, every certain amount of time. whatever that is. I mean, that's not up to me to figure it out, but I feel like we need to figure something out. Okay. As far as like after school programs, not everyone does after school sports. A lot of people come home and, like you said, they have homework. I think the expectation of schoolwork after school is too much, in my opinion. And I don't even have school age
I
kids that
agree.
have homework, but I don't think they should be coming home. And first of all, I don't think they should have to go to school for that long, do a sport, and then come home, do homework till 11 o'clock, then not get a good night's sleep. Because just like adults, when we're not getting a good night's sleep, okay, then there's also that issue of, the hormone issue of, then we're craving foods we shouldn't be craving, or eating foods we shouldn't be craving because we're not going to get a good night's sleep. So it's like this, again, this downward spiral, but we have to get our 6 hours of homework done after we just had 6 hours of school. So this, like, okay. And then our parents can't help us with our schoolwork because we're doing math that makes no sense. Like, leave it the way it was. You know what I mean? So
I do. Yes, I do.
Listen,
We are living that.
I know. My kid's like,
Yeah.
what's the answer, Dad? I'm like, 7. He's like, but how did I get there? I'm like, I
right.
don't know.
Who
7. Take
cares?
the I-90. I don't know what to tell
Right,
you.
right,
It's
Google
7.
Right. Like, so it's like, so again, I think, again, school is putting a lot of pressure on kids from that aspect, but we're not worrying about our kids' health. So,
I agree.
but then I don't know. There's just a lot. I think school needs to work on a lot, because these kids are at school the majority of their day. And it's the same thing of adults. Look, when we go to work, if you're at a sedentary job where you're sitting all day, you need to stand up. You need to walk around. You need to get exercise in some form way. I don't know how, but you need to. Okay, whether that be taking the stairs, you're parking further away, you're walking on your lunch. You need to figure it out. But the kids, they're just not worried about it. You know what I mean? Again, they're not worried about 40 years from now if they're obese. So I think schools need to figure something out. And I don't know who's on these boards, talking about nutrition and physical activity, but they need some new people, because it's all messed up. And I don't think it's going to change in any way, because yes, I know education is important, but who cares about your education if you don't have your health in 40 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're very behind the times.
I'm going to put that topic down, because that's going to be the next podcast that we're going to talk about, is all of that. That is a whole nother dynamic for sure.
Right. So yeah, schools are, I don't know. I think there could be also more programs that involve parents, and maybe like wellness types of things. You're laughing.
We're talking about it. What's going to happen tomorrow? I have a new program.
Yeah. Right. Because I think there are kids interested. I mean, you think about, especially high school age, especially females, and even males. Like, a lot of males want to start working out in the gym, or females, they may even go the opposite way of having a disordered eating or eating disorder. Like, so there's both ends of a spectrum. And I just don't think we're taking care of our students, and from a nutritional health standpoint, from a mental standpoint also. I mean, I think just from social media and the marketing and things like that, like, I think a lot of kids do have low self-esteem when they are obese, or even, again, like I said, the opposite way, if they have an eating disorder. And I just don't think it's addressed properly in school. And then they don't want to talk to it about their parents. And so really they just keep it all inside. And a lot of times they'll just keep eating because it's all that their comfort is. And then the obesity just continues to worsen. And like I said, no one brings it up because it's a touchy subject, and they don't want to say, hey, I've noticed you put on some weight, are you okay? Because you don't want to say that to someone. So It's like this, what do you do? But I don't think a lot of kids have a lot of people to go to in schools either. Where again, like, same with adults, we need therapists. And we've talked about this before, of how important therapists are for adults for dealing with obesity and eating issues and things like that. But they don't think that kids need that.
That's honestly where it should be starting. It's the family dynamic, and hopefully you can touch on this topic too. So what role does that family dynamic and their mealtime habits play in shaping a child's risk of obesity?
Oh, it's huge. I think there was, I don't know what study, I'd have to find it, but I think it was like you have a 16% increase in childhood obesity if you don't sit down to a family dinner every night, which is 16%. That's pretty big. I think just the sitting down to relax as a family, but also that family then is typically that parent or parents are typically making a dinner that's pretty balanced if you're making it and you're not just going through a drive-through. But I think it's very important. And then having the kids involved in cooking, I think, is a huge part of it too. So they show the more kids help in the kitchen, the more kids do help, they're going to eat a little healthier also. So they just need to show that. And I do feel like I said, I think just having options, but also trying new things as a family, get the kids to try it. So if you never have a vegetable on the plate, they're typically never going to try a vegetable. So I think you just have to try new things, and really get the kids involved, but try to sit down as much as you can. And maybe if you're only sitting down to dinner, a family dinner once a week, maybe aim for 2 times a week. And then from there, keep increasing. And this is the same thing as like anything else you do as an adult. Like, you have to work on it. You can't just go from, we never sit down as a family, to, all of a sudden sitting down every day. And another thing too, is when people are like, I have no time. Well, no, it takes just as long to go through a drive-through, and just as expensive, probably more expensive. And I am always trying to post quick and easy meals. But again, this requires planning of, hey, Johnny has soccer practice and Mary has gymnastics on, these nights. We need a quick dinner. Well, a quick dinner could be, I need to prep that protein on Sunday and pair it with something else that's really quick. That requires planning. So again, and again, there's that educational piece of, well, I don't know what to pair it with. Well, then that's when maybe you do need to go see a dietitian to talk about like what my meals should look like. Because again, it's a struggle because you don't know what they should look like. But at the end of the day, when you meet with a dietitian, it's actually it's much more simpler than you think.
Yeah, for real. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about, also stress and emotional factors at play. How does stress and emotional eating impact childhood obesity? And what are a few strategies that you can employ to address this?
Yeah. So, it's the same thing as like in adults, is that, typically if you're stressed or you're not sleeping properly, you're going to crave certain foods that you probably typically wouldn't, or eat larger portions than you would. So managing your stress, managing proper sleep is extremely important, because you're not going to gravitate towards fruit or vegetables if you're completely stressed out. Now, there are some people that go the opposite way of not eating at all, but the majority of people do tend to use eating as a coping mechanism. So that's where, adults typically go to alcohol, where kids are, most children are not. So we're using pretty much unhealthy, usually ultra processed foods as that coping mechanism. What I would say is we need to work on that stress management. So whether that be a parent recognizing that and addressing it with the child, or maybe schools recognizing that, I think the school's going to notice it more. Again, I think we need to talk about it more with kids, rather than just let the kids just go and unnoticed. Same thing with weight. Like, maybe it is, monitoring kids' weights in school. And again, I know that's kind of like invasive, but just like that dietitian, when I did that rotation, it might be needed. Okay. I think parents also need to recognize like mindful eating. Like, maybe there is no snacking on the couch. Maybe there is no screen time. And, if you're not getting proper sleep, you have to set boundaries in your house as a parent to try to, if there is childhood obesity, try to prevent it from worsening. Again, maybe it is cooking more as a parent. You control the food that comes in that house. Yeah, you can't control a lot of the things that they do outside of it, but you can talk to them and recommend and do the best you can to say, like, hey, do you want to come grocery shopping with me? Are there certain foods you want? That type of thing. So I think it's a lot of communication from the parents. And I don't think there's a lot of communication nowadays with parents and kids, because everyone's on their phone. The parents are on their phone, and the kids are on their phone, the parents working late hours. Like, It's like there's just no talking anymore.
I agree with all of that. And that's something that we definitely did in our house was my kids started to have a say and they were helping with the cooking and my boys are wrestlers, so they know very well about macronutrients and their calorie intake and how to balance that level. So my kids are very lucky to have that on their plate. But I'm hoping that you can kind of give our viewers maybe some information about the long-term health effects, consequences of childhood obesity, both in this immediate and their later stages of life.
Yeah. So, from a health standpoint, we have diabetes, which is huge. Okay. Like I said, these kids are getting diabetes. And with diabetes, you have the long-term complications of things like neuropathy, kidney issues, eye issues, really just diabetes can just cause a lot of issues in the long run. It might start off as that you're on some low dose insulin, and then all of a sudden you're using a ton of insulin years down the road. Okay. Which again is not healthy. Cardiovascular disease is a huge one. High blood pressure, breathing issues, sleep apnea. And then we know now that there's 13 cancers related to obesity. So is it that are you setting yourself up to get a cancer later on in life? So, all these things, you all of a sudden you're 13, 14 years old and have the same risk factors as a 50-year-old. So pretty much anything that, an adult is set up to potentially have due to obesity complications or weight issues, that adolescent is too, that child is. So, it's kind of like really they can have any complication in the world. You know what I mean? I would say some limitations for just like movement. Do you know what I mean? Like obesity can be limiting. So then you're limited on your movement. You're limited on, I think also like we have to talk about mental health, like self-esteem. Are you truly happy? Are you, do you have a mental health issue because of the obesity? Things like that. So all those things need to be looked at. But I think the actual medical complications are the most dangerous, in my opinion. Like we have, again, people who are on tons of insulin at the age of 15 because of diabetes, unable to actually move around and walk because they're so heavy. So it's unfortunate. We have infertility issues due to obesity. That's another one. So actually my girlfriend just sent me a link to studies that was done on Ozempic, that they're calling them Ozempic babies because these people are losing, well, there's two factors: that people are losing weight on Ozempic, which is improving their fertility. And that's not the only thing. And I don't want people to think that's the only thing, really. Trust me, I'll talk about pregnancy all day, but that is a factor. And then they're also talking about that actually people who are on birth control and taking Ozempic, it decreases the effectiveness of birth control. But so I'm just talking about like, so there's that's a huge issue. And infertility is huge nowadays. I mean, it's huge right now. So that's another factor to kind of think about as a long-term effect of that. So those are all the things. And what I wanted to touch back on those GLP-1 medications for weight loss is, because I know I kind of brought it up in the beginning part, is that Wegovy and Ozempic are actually approved for 12-year-olds and up. So 12 and up.
Real quick, I just said this to somebody the other day and I was off by 3 years. I go, no doubt within the next 3 years, Ozempic and GLP-1s will be given to children. And I didn't know it was going to be 7 hours later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not lying. I just had that conversation with somebody earlier at the gym and I'm like, they're absolutely going to approve them soon for kids. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Which is, it's discouraging because like I said, we did a whole podcast on it and, you guys can go listen to it. I don't know what number podcast was it. You remember?
90 something.
That long ago. It was 90.
Yeah.
Something.
Okay.
But anyway,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. But why I want to bring it up is that, that's right now our only solution. Like So we're talking about medication, a lifelong medication for a 12-year-old, when we're not talking about maybe like different policies or, things in school to bring awareness to nutrition and physical activity and things like that. So, I think it's scary to me. That's all we have. That's our answer. So, 12 years old. That's just, to me, in my opinion, that's too young, but that's my opinion.
Wow. I knew that I knew that was going to happen. But you know what it is though? You pull Jim out of schools, lack of nutrition education. They sit for 6 to 8 hours. You send them home with homework, lack of activity. Both parents work. Like there's a lot of factors that play in.
There's a
But
lot.
at the end of the day, it comes down to education. If you can educate people, maybe you can get, not everybody, but maybe you can get a higher percentage of people to pay attention to nutrition and what they're consuming and create balanced meals, maybe eat more as a family. It all comes back to education. But you can't just go, nah, forget the education. Just give them the weight loss drugs.
Right. Yeah, I know. So, and I don't even know where to start with the education piece, but like I said, it needs to start with the kids, or actually the parents and then the kids. So it needs to be both together and then I believe separate, because I think some of these kids have fear of voicing their opinions when they're in front of their parents, which is very common for kids. You know what I mean? So that needs to happen separate, but then together. And then maybe even like I would love like a class where, they have it every year. And this is like, so every year through, elementary school, middle school, high school, they do meal plans. They do like a 1 week meal plan just to kind of get an idea, what your plate should look like. I mean, yes, we have governmental, like the My Plate. Like people hate that. I get it. People hate it, but and this is a huge thing because everyone's like always mocking like how it, food pyramid and things like that. But no one ever actually followed that. So did it actually work? We don't know, because no one ever followed it, because you ate like an idiot.
Right. And what's the recommended caloric intake from the food guide pyramid?
1800, and is it 2000 or 22 for men?
Yeah.
No one's following it.
Yeah, you ain't eating 2,000 calories. Like you get what I'm saying? Like you're eating way over that.
Right.
Yeah.
So and again, so that's where when people mock the government for that, it's like, ooh, let's hold on. Why don't you try it for a few months? So like the My Plate, like we have all this free governmental information. Like I actually like the My Plate look, because again, it is really what we're showing. And you guys, I know for the same thing, you like the protein, a starch and a vegetable, like that's how it's supposed to look like. I need you to visualize that. And you could literally take stuff off the internet and teach it to a class. I mean, you don't need a dietitian to teach it, but would it be nice to have a dietitian in every single school? In my opinion, yeah. Yeah. But I think we're underutilized. And I said it before, in so many ways we are underutilized. Maybe you have a dietitian for like every 5 schools or something. You need like to figure that out, but there needs to be education. And maybe if there is, a need from a student or a want from a student, and they voice that opinion and they want to do a session, you have a session, and maybe you do have follow-ups, but I just think that we're worried about the wrong things in school. And it's unfortunate.
I agree with that 100%.
I do too.
What are other like effective ways that healthcare professionals can like identify children at risk of obesity? And we talked about some of the interventions, but do you have any other interventions or that may be successful in combating it?
To identify it. So
yeah.
So I mean, obviously we have like the BMI, and obviously it's a little different for kids. We're not using the same calculation. We use, percentiles for ages 2 to 20. So we have a percentile chart, like a growth chart, we call it. So it's a little different, but it's basically the same thing. So I do think we need to continue to use that. Even though it makes some people very upset when they hear words that we describe certain categories. but I also feel like waist circumference is very important for children and adults. I do believe that uh, blood work is also very important. Um, I think, like I had said too, I mentioned like a lifestyle assessment or recall, and a dietary recall and pattern to say like, how many fruits and vegetables are you eating a week? How many sugary beverages are you eating or drinking in a week? Things like that. And just maybe making changes from that, like small steps. If you're drinking, you know, 2 cans of pop a day, let's go down to one, those types of things. We need to start small, just as we do with adults. But again, I think it can't just come from the kids. I almost feel like we need to have the adults within that doctor's office appointment and say like, hey, you need to tell me what's going on, because you're also the parent that's purchasing these foods, and making these foods at home. So I think those are some big things to kind of get an idea of, determining if someone is overweight or obese, and also trends. So if, you're going to the doctors every year and you're all of a sudden up 20 pounds from last year, what happened? I think a lot of people, and yes, we have people who have lack of access to affordable healthcare. I get that too. Like that could be another social aspect of obesity. But we have kids and adults that don't go to doctors for 10 years. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
no, I'm healthy. I'm healthy. No, please just go get checked out. Like, just go get, like, yes, you have to go. Like, go get checked out, have a baseline to see where these trends fall, whether they be up or down. And so I think sometimes, it's to the point where we either are embarrassed to go, or we know something's wrong and we're scared to go. So I think we need to watch trends for kids too, because if you're up 20 pounds or even down 20 pounds, like, what's going on? We need to take a look. What changed? Did something happen in the family? Was there a divorce? Was there, or did mom get a new job and she's working late hours? Like, we need to take a look at that. So we just don't dive deep into family issues because no one cares. I mean, to be
Right,
honest with
because
you.
it all matters. Everything around us affects what's happening in our lives, and
Yeah.
it kind of brings in that importance of that multidisciplinary approach, right, with involving the dietitians, physicians, psychologists, educators, the family as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But also, so I'm hoping that maybe you can share some things for the parents. So how can parents or caregivers create a supportive environment at home to encourage healthier eating and some more physical activity?
So obviously communicate with them to see what their needs are, what their wants are. I think that's a huge thing. Having boundaries. So, like I said, whether it be screen
It's
time,
hard for parents.
it is. And because, and I get it. Like, I'm a parent myself, like, even, I mean, yeah, my kids are young, but sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, watch your tablet so I can have 10 minutes to do something. Do you know what I mean? I get it. But there needs to be those boundaries of saying, okay, like, or maybe sleep routine times, you know what I mean? Taking the phone away, making sure there is a sitting down for dinner, like having set rules of we're doing this as a family. Or like I said, making the grocery list or the menu together. I think it just all, like I said, comes down to communication as a family. And then if you're not able to make healthier choices because you're not sure what to do, I think you need to look for education yourself. And maybe as a family, is go see like, hey, I want to come. I've had people come for themselves and say, I want to bring my daughter because I think we both need some education on nutrition. And I think that's great because you guys are both eating in the same house, cooking the same food. I've had husband and wife come because they want to work on it as a family. I think that's great. But I think there just needs to be some more communication through parents and kids. And yeah, I mean, that's what I think.
So, sitting back, looking to the future, what advancements or changes do you anticipate or would you like to see when it comes to the field of childhood obesity and prevention and treatment?
Obviously, more use of dietitians, whether that be, like I said, maybe it's you're never going to get one in every school. So maybe it's one every school district. Like that's fine. So maybe that dietitian, goes to all the elementary schools, middle school, and high school. I think there needs to be more screening. I don't know how that would work though. Do you know what I mean? That's a touchy, like I said, it's a touchy subject, but I think there needs to be more preventative type of screening. And the same thing, like when I worked at Roswell, it's the same thing. You're screening for cancer before it happens, or catching it before it worsens. And this is the same thing we do for diabetes. We're screening for your A1C before we get pre-diabetes, before you get diabetes. Like we're doing this, but we're not doing it with childhood obesity. So obviously using dietitians more, utilizing even more therapists, mental health counselors in schools, and then more education. We need more nutrition and physical education. So like we need to have more physical things in schools. And maybe it's more mandated gym classes or something. We need more movement. And so that's huge. And I mean, the whole homework thing is never going to change, but I just think more education for sure, whether through that be the dietitian at the school or wellness courses or classes or something. I don't know. I don't know how it would happen. But again, that's going to change through, policies and procedures at schools. And that's going to cost money. And so it's probably not going to happen, but I would love for it to happen. So yeah. I mean, the whole school lunch thing too, like revamping that would be great. I know they did the whole vending machine back in, I think it was 2010 or 2014. Like they changed that whole thing, and it had to be like, they had to have certain rules of like fat, sugar, like all that kind of, like rules on what you can have in a vending machine. But I don't think it really did much. I think there needs to be more of a revamp on that kind of stuff. But then I get it. It comes down to cost, but you know how that works,
Yeah,
let's draft some higher ups and,
yeah. No, it's true though too. You take out stuff and it's still, you're taking out a vending machine, great, but you're still not educating the kids, not
Right.
not trying to give them a better understanding of why we're taking these out, why why you approach nutrition a certain way. So again, it just comes down to lack of education. If you're just doing things,
Right.
not explaining and not educating, the kids aren't going to get it.
Right.
And
I also think maybe there needs to be, like that, like a dietitian and a trainer talking about like that sports nutrition aspect of it. Like we need food to fuel our training, and that needs to be talked about too, because we have both sides of, athletes in high school and middle school that, we either have like underfed athletes or overfed athletes. And, again, there's that education piece is, I'm not eating because I need to be a certain weight for track and field or gymnastics, or like wrestlers, same thing. Like I got to drop 10 pounds by tomorrow, So like those type of things, so it's just like, again, educational piece from, I think there should be, some sort of dietitian in every school, but
that would be
even just to
fantastic.
go and
I
like,
would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just ask a quick question, or like, I got a big swim meet tomorrow. What do you think I should be having? Like, things like that. Like again, your parents aren't going to know, and you're not going to just have a dietitian on speed dial that you can call. So I think sometimes like that, you need a trainer or a coach or, a dietitian to kind of help you out with that.
If we only had an Ask the Dietitian segment once a month, do you know what I mean? Just something where people could tune in and come with their questions.
I do like that idea.
Nutrition myths debunked and explained in a way that they can understand. That's just me.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm going to be honest with you. I would be up for that, because a lot of the questions that people ask are very similar questions, because it's always the same thing. And I'm just like, oh yeah. And that's typically where I get ideas for like my post ideas, because I'm like, all right, if I get one more person asking the same question, that's all, I'm just going to do a post on it. But it's, I mean, they're very similar questions all around, because it's like, oh, I just saw this on TikTok. Can you tell me about it? I'm like, oh my God.
Yes.
Like there's some new like Ozempic oat thing. It's like Ozempic, and it's like a drink that you blend it up. You blend oats, lime juice, and water, and listen, I don't know the full details, but it's like you're drinking it for a few days and that's
It's
that's
like
your
the new
diet.
detox. Like,
Yeah,
oh my word.
basically. I'm just like, oh my God, who comes up with this stuff?
It's
So,
yeah. I gotta know. I gotta ask. Can you give us your top three weight loss comment strategies that you saw? Like what three made you giggle and just go, "Oh my gosh."
well, fruit has too much sugar
That's a
is
classic.
obviously that's a classic. I'm trying to think of, let me see if I can, I'd have to go back to, I'm trying to remember. There was one other one, a lot of other ones, I should say. If I can. Oh, someone who walking isn't beneficial isn't as beneficial as people say. That was one that really made me mad because that actually,
Yeah.
yep.
Wow.
Now, when
Oh,
someone comments like that, you're like, "Go on." Like you can't
right,
just drop that line and then leave. Like,
right, yeah. And then the other one was um any carbs,
what's
but that
that?
was like don't eat any carbs.
Well, you don't eat carbs, right?
Right, they're
You
not good for
can't
you.
eat them because
Right,
carbs are bad.
they're gonna make
What?
you fat.
Yeah, they're gonna
Right,
make you fat, so you can't eat.
right.
No
And then you
So
go,
carbs nation.
and then you ask, "Do you eat vegetables?" Yeah. Do you eat fruit?
right.
Yeah. Mm,
They
I
have
hate
no
to
idea what it is.
hate to
Or
break it to
dairy.
you.
Yeah, they have no idea. They have no idea. So, yeah, that the no carb thing, because it came in many forms of do keto, don't eat carbs, carbs make you fat. So carbs were in there quite a bit, which the carbs are, I don't know why it's still like a thing. Like, why do people still think that they're awful? I don't get it.
Well, I think it's because it's a trendy thing. Like if you put on social media, there'll be some person sitting there going, "I only eat on even hours, no carbs, just meat, no more than 18 ounces of water, 4 hours of sleep, back up in the morning, do my notes.
In my
Nope."
in my eating window is 2:15
Yeah.
p.m. to 2:30 p.m.
I don't do eating windows, I do eating doors. It's like, what?
Love it,
What's
Barb.
the difference?
Oh
There's
my
nothing.
God. Created a whole new world right there, Brian. The eating door.
I'm
Go.
telling you.
Yeah.
It'll be there
Well,
tomorrow.
Beth and I were like, we should just listen. We should give people like solid like nutrition advice, some suggested caloric intakes, and then just give them Skittles and be like, "There's Sperduti weight loss pills. You eat these 3 times a day." Yeah.
You know what?
Only 3 at a time.
Yeah, 3 at a time.
So dietitians have also thought of that. When I was working at Roswell, we shared an office and we are all like, why don't we just come up with some like placebo pill and say it makes you lose weight, but then at the bottom have a small section that says in conjunction with healthy
Yeah.
eating and weight, like in exercise. And
Hmm.
then we could sell them for like $50 a bottle per month. You could do, and then yeah,
Hmm.
we're rich. Because that's
Mhm.
what everything else is. It's the same thing.
It's
It's
a
a
scam.
placebo
Yeah. So weight loss hula hoops.
Yep.
You're great.
See, all the same ideas.
It
All the
is.
same
It
ideas.
is. It's yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. I think we went over everything. We definitely got to talk more about this other stuff though. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think
I'm
just
down.
debunking diet and ask the dietitian, I think would be really cool because I think so many people want to ask a dietitian a question, but they don't like know one or know how to do it or don't have
Yeah.
a safe place where they can do it. So
I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yep. Let's do it.
I'm down. Man, look at that. We created 7 new programs. We have
Yeah.
our getting into schools. We have our
Oh man.
Oh wow. Wow. That was really, really good. We have a lot. That's a lot of info, but we will talk more after this. Beth, you want to take her through some questions? Is there anything? I know she's answered these before, but
Yeah,
I want to
you
go more into
I
school lunches, but we can talk.
well, I don't want to forget about our viewers that are watching also for the big reveal. So we're going to get into some questions so hopefully Rachel, you'll stay on because I know that some of our challengers, we are actually releasing our winner tonight. We're announcing the winner. So they have been watching and waiting, but we're going to make them wait a little bit longer. So Rachel, we want to know again, because the people want to know, give us your 3 favorite restaurants that you've been hitting up lately.
Well, Lucia's, but I haven't really hit it up in a while because I usually go with my husband and he hasn't been home. but hopefully he'll be home soon. So Lucia's, poppy seed, and
Ooh.
JP's in the village.
Favorite item from poppy seed. Go-to meal.
The chicken Slovaki salad.
Really? They have a turkey cranberry wrap.
My mom has had that, and I've had a bite of it before, and it is really good.
Really good.
That one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about your favorite cheat meal? This go-to dirty, low nutrient,
dirty, lonely meal. Which
it's the one. The one you're
after you're done helping the kids with 6 hours of homework and you put them to bed,
right?
You're like, I'm slamming the salmon ring right now.
Right. The thing is like I hate using the word cheat meal because like pizza, like some people consider that a cheat meal, but I incorporate pizza probably at least weekly into my diet. So it's
can you say that again for the people in the back? Just there's people here that
a little louder.
Yeah.
Like, so it's hard to say because like I'm not sure what I would consider like French fries. I also love French fries. So people might consider that a cheat meal, but sometimes I'll have a salad and French fries and kind of use the French fries as my carb in my meal. Because I hate when people just eat salads and they're like, I didn't have any carb with it. I'm like, that's why you were hungry 2 hours later. I'm like, add some sort of carb to it. So, again, it's not having like, a huge fry, but like I'll have fries. So, and then I would say, so pizza, fries are probably my favorite. And then like any type of chocolate, but I also have chocolate every day. So not like.
Yep. And I love that you brought all of those up because it is so important for people to understand that they don't have to be foods that have to be removed from your diet. Right. They can be foods that are incorporated in because that's what we want to teach people. How do you incorporate the foods that you love into your daily nutrition? Right. That's really what it boils down to. I feel like that's one of the first things people ask us when they work with us. Am I allowed to have this? And I'm like, what program have you been doing where people are telling you that you can't have the things that you like?
Right.
Yeah, you can have it. Let's just figure out how it fits in. Maybe you have to modify the portion size that you're having, but yes,
exactly.
You can have the foods that you love.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, when you talk to people about flexible nutrition, I even like the way we look at it is you can incorporate a wide variety of food, right? And you want to have pizza, yeah, you can make a healthy pizza from home. That's how we look at flexible nutrition. You don't have to eat this super restrictive, stringent, same foods every day, them 7 super weight loss foods, and that's it. It's not shove as much crap you can in your mouth and fill your caloric intake. Like that's not what we're going for. Like we're actually, it's like I try to get across to clients because they're like, well, this doesn't work for me because I don't want to eat, eat chocolate or eat. I'm like, well, you don't have to.
Right.
It's just finding a plan that works for you, but don't be afraid to incorporate different foods. Well, I don't like broccoli. You don't have to eat broccoli, eat cauliflower, eat something else. That's all we're saying. I almost want to give it like a new name because I think sometimes it's like, it isn't just shove as much crap in your mouth as you can. It's just eating a wide variety of foods, making meals at home, giving it a healthy spin, making sure you're staying in your caloric goals so you can actually have sustainability long term. But I think sometimes what it is sometimes we see the super restrictive methods that people have used. So we'll be like, oh, I have chocolate every day. What people don't realize is we're saying, no, we have like a square or we have
not a bar.
We're not having Snickers king size every day.
Right.
But if you want something, you have a little something rather than like cheat days back in the day where people would be like, it's my cheat day. I had Denny's for breakfast. I had margaritas and quesadillas for lunch. And then we went to Ilio's afterwards and then went out. And I'm like, bro, you ate 9,000 calories.
Right.
Like that's kind of where I think the disconnect sometimes with people is because, like I said, when they hear you say like, I had pizza, or I had chocolate. No, she had a serving. She didn't have, it wasn't a whole day event. You know what I mean?
Right. And I've realized even with a lot of my clients is that when they come to me and they're like that and they feel like there's foods that are off limits, they then tend to crave them more. And I feel like I've talked about this before. And so when you do start to incorporate them and like I said, it's pairing them with something. So it's, pizza with vegetables. Like you're going to have a salad with it. You're going to have some, maybe some bell peppers with it. But that pizza is not going to take the nutritional value away from those vegetables that you're having with it. And when you do have a small piece like that, you're not going to then want a whole pizza on Saturday. Same with the chocolate. If you let yourself, and I hate to say let yourself because, you should just be able to incorporate these foods, but if you have a small piece of chocolate every day and that's something you like, if you don't like chocolate, again, like have a small serving of ice cream or whatever it is you like, but then you're not going to want that whole pint of ice cream or that whole chocolate bar on Saturday. So those cravings, those really deep cravings tend to go away when you start to incorporate all the foods you like. And that's why I do, I don't really count macros. I kind of just count like lazy macros, if you want to kind of call it, like protein and fiber. But, when you kind of count that way, everything just kind of falls into place and you're allowed to have those quote unquote bad foods, So
I actually prefer to do calories and just like protein fiber because I feel like it gives
right.
people more foods they can incorporate and it's not so restrictive.
Yeah, not so stressful either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great strategy. Everybody should try it. Of course. And now the people want to know, are you binging any good TV shows right now?
I just finished Love is Blind, which I love. Such trash TV.
I love it. I love it.
I'm more of like a Netflix watcher because I never really I only get to like wind down at night for a little bit. I did just finish watching The Watcher on the Netflix, which was pretty good. And that's really, and then I always watch like Dateline reruns. That's really it. That's my life.
Those are good. Those are good. And Rachel, at the end of your busy day of your full-time work, being a full-time mom, what are you doing to de-stress?
Sometimes a glass of wine. Again, that fits into my day.
How dare you?
Now, when people see you, they're going to be like, "You're the dietitian that eats the chocolate and drinks wine, right? You're that."
Right. And eats pizza.
Yeah.
All people pulled from this podcast was, "Oh, I could have chocolate and wine. It was okay."
Yeah, like just getting a workout in, or even just because I have to get my workouts in at odd times because of work and the kids. Sometimes walking on my walking pad, or sometimes just sitting on the couch and watching TV. That's it. I mean, I would love to like get in my hot tub, but it's emptied right now. But that would be another way.
Oh, so. I keep mine full all year. I use it in the winter and everything. Oh, it's the
best.
It's
the best in the winter, but I didn't want to deal with it with my husband being gone.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to deal with this. And I'm like, when am I going to have time with him being gone and me being like this single mom right now? You know what I mean? So, we emptied it.
Well, it'll be a nice treat when it's back up and running.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that was awesome. That's a lot of good stuff. That's so good. It's so much more to talk about, but we'll have you on for 4 hours if we do that. So what we'll do is thanks for being with us again. Thanks for going over all the childhood obesity strategies and ways we can approach it with parents. And we have so much great information. I'll break a bunch of this down, put it into reels, tag you in it. I'll tag the last podcast we did as far with the GLP-1s. And I'll also tag your information like I always do as well. In case people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yep. So you can go to my website, buffalodietitian.com, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Buffalo Dietitian, or you can email me at rachel@buffalodietitian.com.
Awesome. And before we go today, Coach Beth's going to go over some news.
What everybody's been waiting for. So, of course, we just closed up the first of the year challenge. It just ended. So our winner is going to be announced tonight. But before I announce that winner, I want to let you guys know that we're going to keep the enrollment open for the current challenge. It just started yesterday until Friday of this week, the 29th. So if you are considering getting in on the challenge, now is the time. Head on over to our Facebook page, SperdutiFitness.com website, or download the app available on both the Apple and Android platforms. Or, of course, you can private message us to get details on how to get enrolled. But for now, the winner of the very first challenge of the 2024 season is our very own Coach Rick Weber. Rick has put in the work time and time again. This round of the challenge, Rick was down an additional 24.2 pounds and another 9.5 inches. So congratulations to Rick Weber. He is our first $1,000 cash prize winner of the 2024 Transformation Challenge season. So congratulations, Rick.
Awesome. Congratulations, Rick. And we'll be posting a little bit about Rick this week as well, because this dude, I mean, he's starting to make me jealous. Like, he's making me work harder in the gym. I'm like, Rick posted again about being in the gym. Let me get in the garage a little bit.
Yep.
But congratulations, Rick. And again, enrollment for the challenge will be extended till this Friday. So make sure to sign up. Thank you all for joining us for this podcast. Rachel, thanks for joining us. And
You're
we will
welcome.
catch you all next podcast.
We'll see you later.
Bye.